All right, let's dive into Ali Abdaal's feel-good productivity.
Sounds good.
See what he has to say about getting things done,
Right.
without burning yourself out. I mean,
hmm
I think that's something we can all relate to.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting how Abdal frames this whole thing, coming from his own personal struggles as a surgeon. He was dealing with, that intense pressure, the long hours.
I think it really hits home when he shares that anecdote about,
Yeah.
dropping a tray of medical supplies on Christmas Day
Oh, wow.
because he was just so exhausted.
Yeah.
It's like a wake-up call. That traditional productivity advice,
Right.
sometimes it can really backfire if
Absolutely.
you don't prioritize well-being.
That's where I think his feel-good productivity framework is really insightful.
Yeah,
This idea that when you actually feel good,
right.
you're going to be naturally more motivated and
So
energized.
it's not just about,
Yeah.
powering through it, like gritting your teeth, white
Yeah.
knuckling it.
No,
It's more about finding that, like,
it's about enjoying the process.
yeah, enjoying the process. Exactly.
Yeah, but finding the joy in it.
How does that actually work? How do you translate that into like an actionable
He breaks it down into three key feel-good energizers, he calls them. There's play,
play?
power, and people.
Okay.
And those are the things we're going to unpack today.
Play, when I hear that word, I immediately think about procrastination.
Right, it seems counterintuitive, yeah.
I think about not getting things done.
But it's not about goofing off.
Right.
It's not about,
So what is he talking about?
it's about bringing a sense of curiosity and experimentation,
Yeah.
almost like adventure into your work.
Give me an example. Like how does
Sure, so he talks about Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize-winning physicist.
Okay, yeah.
Feynman was feeling burned out, so he started playing around with
Wait, hold on. Richard Feynman, like the
Yeah, the physicist.
the physics guy.
Yes.
Okay.
And what he started doing was playing around with spinning plates,
Literally spinning plates.
literally spinning plates,
Okay.
like a circus act.
Spinning plates led to a Nobel Prize. I mean,
Well, not directly,
okay.
but you know what it did? It sparked a deeper understanding of physics for him.
Okay.
And that ultimately contributed to,
Okay.
his groundbreaking work.
But how does that apply to like my
So it highlights how approaching things with a sense of play
okay,
can unlock creativity and lead to those unexpected breakthroughs.
my overflowing inbox or,
He gives some practical techniques for that. One is called the choose your character experiment.
okay.
So think about playful archetypes. You've got the explorer, the storyteller, the competitor.
So it's almost like choosing your character in a video game.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then approaching your work through that lens.
And then you're like playing the game of whatever that.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
It makes even those mundane tasks maybe a little bit more engaging.
And he also talks about the side quest technique.
Yeah, that one is all about adding a small, enjoyable task to your workday.
Okay.
Just something that kind of sparks that curiosity.
So like a little
Maybe it's trying a new coffee shop near your
a
office.
little break. I like
Or
yeah.
finally learning that keyboard shortcut you've been
Yeah.
putting off.
I like that.
Just something small to kind of,
Because sometimes you just need to shake things up a little bit.
exact.
But isn't there a risk that those become distractions?
That's a valid concern. And I think the key is to be intentional
Okay.
about choosing those activities that actually align with your goals
Right.
and energize you, not just distract you.
So finding that sweet spot
Yes.
between playfulness and focus,
hmm
okay, that can be hard.
It is, but, Abdal highlights all this research showing that curiosity
Okay.
actually boosts dopamine. That's the feel-good hormone linked to learning and motivation.
So it's not just about making it more enjoyable,
Right.
but also about enhancing your actual cognitive abilities.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you're working smarter, not harder.
Okay, I'm starting to buy into this whole feel-good approach.
All right, good.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Power. What does power have to do with productivity?
So power, he defines it as a sense of personal empowerment,
Okay.
feeling in control of your work and your life.
I mean, that definitely sounds motivating.
Yeah.
But how do you cultivate that? How do you just
Right.
create a feeling of power?
Well, he suggests a few different techniques. One is what he calls the confidence switch,
Okay.
which is really about using positive self-talk and visualization.
I've noticed that my mindset really affects how I approach things,
hmm
but sometimes it's hard to get those negative thoughts out.
That's true. That's where the no one cares mindset can be helpful.
No one err.
Yeah, it's about reframing that fear of judgment
Okay.
by reminding yourself that, most people are too busy with their own lives.
Right.
To be noticing every little mistake that you make.
True, but wouldn't that lead to, like, complacency?
Well, it's not about being careless. It's
Okay.
about releasing that fear of judgment
Okay.
that's veramizing you.
So it frees you up to experiment more.
Yeah, experiment, take risks, learn from your mistakes.
I think we could all use a little bit of that. But
Absolutely.
what about when you have to face those big challenges,
Yeah,
when you need that extra boost?
he's got a technique for that too. It's called the Batman effect.
The Batman effect.
Yeah, the Batman effect.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's this idea of adopting an alter ego or persona to tackle those challenges
Okay.
with increased confidence.
Like literally pretend you're Batman.
Not literally, but,
Okay.
if you're intimidated by a presentation,
Okay.
imagine you're stepping into the role of a confident speaker, someone you admire.
Okay.
It's almost like putting on a mag, allowing you to
Eh.
access a different side of yourself, one that's not held back by that fear or self-doubt.
So you give yourself permission to kind of.
Yeah, try on that different persona.
Okay, I like that.
And there's research to support it. They did a study with children, and those who imagine themselves as Batman
Okay.
while completing a task,
Yeah.
they showed more perseverance and focus.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So,
So we've got play and we've got power.
we do.
And the last one is people. How do people fit into this?
So that's where we get into, the importance of our social connections
Yeah.
and how they impact our mood and our party cheer.
But I get distracted easily, you know?
Right. So it's about finding the balance.
Yeah.
And Abdaal, he emphasizes this concept of genius,
Yeah.
which he describes as that collective genius that emerges
Okay.
from a supportive community.
I mean, he uses the example of Brian Eno.
Yeah, the musician.
Yeah, finding that community in London.
Exactly.
Really thriving.
It wasn't just about networking. It was about finding his tribe, his people.
Finding his people.
Yeah.
So how do we tap into that genius energy?
Well, one way is to adopt what he calls the comrade mindset.
Comrade mindset.
It's about shifting from viewing colleagues as competitors
Okay.
and seeing them as collaborators.
I think that's a struggle for a lot of us.
Absolutely.
We're so conditioned to see others as rivals.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make that shift?
It starts with being mindful of our language and actions.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of seeing a colleague's success as a threat,
Right.
celebrate it.
Okay.
Offer support, ask questions, learn from each other.
It's about creating that shared success.
Exactly.
Right.
And, there's research to show that collaboration actually boosts productivity.
Interesting.
When people feel like they're on a team working towards a common goal,
Yeah.
they tend to be more engaged and invested.
So win-win, better relationships, more work done.
Yeah.
He also talks about the power of synchronicity.
Yes.
What is that?
So he's not talking about like being at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
It's actually referring to research
Okay.
that when people engage in synchronized activities together,
Mm-hmm.
like singing or dancing, it creates a sense of unity
Interesting.
and connection, boosts mood and cooperation.
Oh, it's almost like that collective flow state.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to another point.
Okay.
Helping others.
I'm all for that.
Right.
But how does helping others fit into being productive?
Well, he talks about the helper's high,
Helper's high.
that positive boost you get when you're helping others.
I mean, it does feel good to help.
Right. There's actually science behind this.
Okay.
Research showing that helping others releases feel-good hormones
Okay.
like oxytocin, which boost mood and energy.
So it's a cycle. You help others, you feel good, you get more done, you're motivated to help more.
Exactly.
I love that.
And it could be something as simple as helping a colleague with a project
Okay.
or mentoring someone new in your field.
It's about contributing, finding a way to.
Mm-hmm. To your community, both inside and outside of work.
Okay, I like that.
And there's another point he brings up, the Benjamin Franklin effect.
The Benjamin Franklin effect? I've never heard of that.
Have you not?
No, I'm intrigued.
Okay, so this is the idea that asking someone for help
Okay.
can actually make them like you more.
Really? That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but the psychology behind it is that when we do something nice for someone,
Okay.
our brains tend to rationalize it by deciding we must like that person.
Oh, interesting.
So by asking for help.
So it's like giving them a chance to feel good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And strengthen the relationship.
That's a good one. I like that. Are there any other tips he gives?
He emphasizes over-communication,
Okay.
especially when it comes to good news,
Right.
celebrating success.
And celebrating other people's successes as well.
Yes,
It
exactly.
talks about capitalization, like
Yeah.
making a big deal out of it.
Amplifying those positive emotions.
Yeah.
And, research shows that this strengthens relationships.
Yeah.
And contributes to happiness and well-being.
But what about when you have to communicate something that's not so great?
That's where the art of candor comes in.
Candor. What's the difference between being honest and being candid?
Well, honesty can sometimes be perceived as harsh or judgmental.
Right.
But candor is about sharing your perspective
Okay.
in a way that's respectful and constructive.
Even when it's difficult.
Even when it's difficult, he suggests framing your feedback
Okay.
in terms of observations, not interpretations.
So instead of you're being rude, you're saying?
Yeah, like, I noticed that you interrupted someone a few times.
Okay.
It's about the behavior, not the person.
I see.
It takes practice, but candor is key for strong relationships
Okay.
and a positive work environment.
So we've got play, power, people.
Yeah, those are the three energizers.
Those are our three feel-good energizers.
They are.
And it's really about a lot more than just checking off those boxes.
Yeah.
It's really about a whole...
It's about mindset. It's about relationships. It's about finding joy in the process.
A whole different approach to productivity.
Exactly. And that leads us to,
Right.
the next part of his framework,
Okay.
unblocking productivity.
Okay.
Because even with all the right energizers in place,
Yeah.
we all face those moments that we feel stuck. We're procrastinating.
Totally.
So that's what we're going to dive into next.
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right.
You're telling me there's a way to get through those times when I'm just staring at the screen, like
Oh, yeah.
completely stuck?
Absolutely.
I feel like we've all been there.
We have. Abdal, he identifies these three emotional blocks
Okay.
that really tend to trigger that procrastination,
All right.
uncertainty, fear, and inertia.
So those are like the big three roadblocks.
They're like productivity kryptonite.
Okay, let's tackle these one by one.
Okay.
Starting with uncertainty, like that feeling of not knowing where to start, not knowing what to do next.
It's like that analysis paralysis, right?
Yeah.
You're just so overwhelmed they end up doing nothing.
So what does Abdal say about that?
He compares it to driving in fog.
Okay.
You can't see clearly ahead, so you hesitate to move forward.
I love that analogy. It's like,
Yeah,
you're just lost in the fog.
lost in the fog, yeah.
So how do we clear the fog?
So how do we clear the fog? Well, he has this really simple framework.
Okay.
Asking yourself three questions.
Okay, what are the questions?
Why,
Okay.
what, and when.
Okay, so starting with why.
So the why is about defining your purpose.
Okay.
What Abdal calls your commander's intent.
Commander's intent.
He borrowed that from military strategy.
Okay.
It's essential that everyone knows the overall objective.
Right. Even if the plan has to change.
Even if the plan changes,
Okay.
you've got to be able to adapt.
He uses the example of the D-Day landings.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty intense example.
It is.
But, they were able to adapt
If we're-
and ultimately succeed because
Yeah.
they knew what they were there to do.
They had that crystal clear vision.
Okay, so having that strong why
Yeah,
helps you push through the tough times.
absolutely. So you've got to ask yourself,
Yeah.
what's the bigger purpose? How does this contribute to my overall goals?
All right, so we've got why. What about the what?
So the what is about clarifying the specific steps
Okay.
involved and anticipating obstacles.
Okay.
He calls this the crystal ball method
Okay.
or pre-mortem analysis.
So you're basically like mentally rehearsing.
Yeah, you're mentally rehearsing for those setbacks.
Okay.
And so instead of waiting for things to go wrong, imagine your project failed.
Right.
Ask yourself, what went wrong?
Okay, so you're kind of thinking about all the things that could go wrong.
You are.
And then coming up with like,
Solutions,
So it
contingency
sounds-
plans.
okay.
It's all about being prepared.
it sounds a little bit pessimistic,
It does, but it can be empowering.
but it's more about being like prepared,
Yeah.
realistic.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the last question is when?
When? The eternal struggle
Yes, the eternal struggle.
of time management.
Oh, time management. We all need help with that.
We do. Abdal's solution, time blocking.
Okay, time blocking. I've heard of that,
You've heard of it?
but I haven't really implemented it.
Yeah, it's about scheduling those specific time slots. It
Right.
seems overly structured, but it could be so liberating.
Because you're actually like making the time.
You're making time for the things that matter.
Yeah, okay.
So he has this 3-level system.
Okay.
Start with the tasks that you've been avoiding,
Okay.
and then block out your whole day,
Okay.
and then create the ideal week.
So it's like levels.
Levels, yeah.
Okay.
You level up your time blocking.
Okay, so why?
Hmm.
What? And when? We've got uncertainty covered.
We do.
But what about when it's not just uncertainty?
Okay.
It's fear.
All right, fear, that's a whole other beast.
Yeah, like fear can be paralyzing.
Yeah, it can be.
So how do we deal with that?
So Abdal points out that fear triggers our amygdala.
Our what?
Amygdala.
Okay.
It's the part of the brain
Okay.
responsible for that fight or flight response,
Okay.
which, crucial for survival.
Yeah, like when you're in actual danger.
But when it comes to things like presentations,
Right. Every day.
starting a new project,
It's a little bit of an overreaction.
our brain's overreacting.
Yeah, okay.
And that can lead to procrastination, avoidance.
Right, because you just get scared and shut down.
So Abdal's approach, it's two-pronged.
Okay.
You've got to get to know your fears,
Okay.
and then you've got to reduce their power.
Okay, so let's start with getting to know our fears.
Right. So Abdal really emphasizes understanding those specific fears.
Okay.
You can't really address a problem
Right.
if you don't know what it is.
He uses that example of the study with the arachnophobes.
Yes, the people who were afraid of spiders,
Yeah.
and they had to approach a tarantula.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Sounds terrifying, but
Yet the people who actually named their fear,
they did better.
they were able to get closer.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So acknowledging and naming your fears can diminish their power.
It's like when you actually say it out loud,
Yeah.
it's not as scary.
It's not as scary. It's not this big unknown.
Okay, so what's this technique called?
It's the emotion label technique.
Emotion label. Okay.
You identify and name your fear.
Got it.
I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of being judged.
Okay, so then once we know what our fears are, how do we actually make them less scary?
So Abdal suggests a few strategies.
Okay.
One is gaining perspective.
Okay.
He uses the 10-10 rule.
The 10-10 rule, what is that?
So ask yourself, will this matter in 10 minutes, 10 weeks, 10
Yeah,
years?
that's a good one because sometimes it feels so big in the moment.
It does, but when you zoom out,
Yeah.
it's not so bad.
Okay, I like that one.
And he also reminds us about the spotlight effect.
The spotlight effect, what is that?
We often feel like we're under a microscope,
Oh, yeah.
like everyone's judging us.
Oh, totally.
But the reality is, most people are too busy.
Yeah, they're worried about their own stuff.
They're worried about their own stuff.
Okay, so it's kind of like the no one cares mindset.
Yeah, it's that no one cares mindset.
Right.
Freeing yourself to experiment, to take risks.
And what was that other one? The Batman effect.
Oh, the Batman effect, yeah.
Can we apply that here as well?
You can. So tap into that alter ego
Okay.
who embodies those qualities you need.
So like,
If you need to be bold,
okay,
channel your inner superhero.
okay.
Need to be calm and collected.
Yeah,
Visualize yourself as a Zen master.
I like that.
It's about finding that.
So you kind of become a different
Mm-hmm.
version of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got uncertainty, fear. What about inertia?
All right, inertia, that feeling of being stuck.
That's like procrastination at its finest.
It is. It's that resistance to change.
Like trying to get a boulder to move.
It's like pushing a boulder uphill.
It's so hard to get it started.
So Abdal's approach to inertia,
Yeah.
it's about reducing friction and taking action.
Okay, so let's start with reducing friction. How do we do that?
So it's about making it easy to get started.
Okay.
He talks about this study about shopping trolleys with green inlays.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. That's so interesting.
So this simple visual cue encouraged people to buy more vegetables.
Wow, so it's not even always about motivation.
Not always about motivation. It's about setting yourself up for success.
It's more about just making it easy.
Making it easy.
Okay.
So look at your workspace, your phone settings.
Right.
What are those friction points?
Okay.
Cluttered desk, distracting notifications.
Yeah, I have a lot of those.
We all do.
Okay, so eliminate those.
Eliminate them, make it
But what if even after you reduce all the friction, you're still like,
okay.
I don't want to do it.
So that's where that second strategy comes in.
Okay.
Taking action.
Okay.
It's about shifting from planning to doing.
Okay.
Abdal, he quotes this CEO coach, Matt Mokri,
Okay.
who talks about the bias to action.
Okay, the bias to action.
It's better to take action,
Right.
even imperfectly, than to get stuck in endless planning.
So progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection, yeah.
But what if it just feels so overwhelming?
Okay, so in that case,
You don't even know where to start.
break it down into smaller actions.
Okay.
Find your next action step.
Your next action step. Okay.
What's the very next thing you need to do
That's a good one.
to move it forward?
Just like tiny little steps.
Tiny little steps.
Okay.
And once you take that first step,
Yeah.
you build momentum.
But how do you keep that momentum going?
So that's where tracking progress comes in.
Okay.
Abdal highlights this power of seeing how far you've come.
Right, like a visual reminder.
Yeah, he uses the example of Brendan Sanderson.
Okay, the fantasy author.
Yeah, Sanderson, he meticulously tracks his word count,
Okay.
and it helps him stay motivated and on track.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is. And finally, we've got accountability.
Accountability, like having someone to keep you.
Yeah, to keep you honest,
Okay.
check in with, share your progress.
So find an accountability buddy.
Find an accountability buddy, someone who's supportive but also challenging.
Okay, so not just someone who's going to let you get away with stuff.
No, someone who's going to push you.
Okay.
He gives a framework
Okay.
for creating that partnership.
So it's not just about nagging, it's about,
No, it's about support.
yeah, support and encouragement.
And celebrating wins.
It's celebrating wins, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got uncertainty, fear, inertia.
The 3 blocks.
We know how to deal with them now.
We do. And that brings us to the final piece
Okay.
of Abdal's feel-good productivity puzzle. Sustainability.
Ah, sustainability, the holy grail.
The Holy Grail. Yeah.
Like, how do we actually keep this going
Right. It's one thing to have a burst of productivity.
Yeah.
How do you maintain it
without burning out?
without burning out? That's what we're going to explore next. It's about shifting our focus, from just doing more to actually doing more of what matters.
Oh, okay.
And doing it in a way that, kind of nourishes our well-being instead of depleting it.
So how do we make it sustainable?
Well, he identifies these 3 types of burnout:
Okay.
overexertion,
Okay.
depletion, and then misalignment.
3 types of burnout. I've always thought about it as like
Yeah.
one big overwhelming thing.
Yeah, like one general feeling,
Yeah.
but he kind of breaks it down.
Okay, so let's talk about these different types.
No.
Starting with overexertion burnout. What is that?
Overexertion burnout is that classic, like, too much of a good thing.
Okay.
It's about pushing yourself too hard, taking on too much,
Right.
not giving yourself enough time to rest and recover.
It's like sprinting a marathon.
Exactly. You're going to burn out.
You're not going to make it.
You're not going to make. And in today's always-on culture, it's so easy to fall into that trap.
I know. You feel guilty when you're not being productive.
Yes.
Like you're wasting time.
Absolutely.
You're not constantly doing something. So how do we avoid that?
Well, Abdaal has a great example, LeBron James.
LeBron James, okay.
One of the greatest,
Basketball players of all time.
of all time. But he's actually one of the slowest players on the court.
Really?
Yeah, he conserves his energy by walking when he doesn't have the ball.
So he's playing the long game.
He's playing the long game.
He knows he can't sprint the whole time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's about pacing ourselves.
Yeah.
That rest and recovery are essential.
Okay, so what are some tips for that? How do we...
Some tips for that. One is learning to say no more often.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
It is. It's hard, but
You want to say yes to everything.
you do. But every yes is a no to something else.
Right.
And often it's something important.
Okay, so we've got to learn to say no.
You got to set those boundaries, Protect your time and energy.
Any other tips?
Another one is embracing single tasking.
Okay.
It might seem counterintuitive.
Right, because we're all about multitasking these days.
We're all about it.
Yeah.
But focusing on one task at a time actually leads to greater productivity,
Okay.
less stress.
I'm so guilty of trying to do everything at once.
I think we all are.
Yeah, and you just had to feel scattered.
Yes, because multitasking is a myth.
Okay.
Our brains just aren't designed for it.
Okay.
And then the last tip he has for overexertion burnout is do nothing breaks.
Do nothing breaks. What are those?
These are short periods of complete disengagement from work.
Okay.
Just let your mind rest and recharge.
Like a mini vacation.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got overexertion burnout.
Yeah.
What about depletion burnout?
Depletion burnout is about not giving yourself enough time to recharge outside of work.
Okay.
So it's neglecting those things that fill you up.
Like those things that make you happy?
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's so easy to put those things off.
It is. We think we're being productive by always working,
Right. We feel guilty.
but it's actually making us less productive.
So it backfires.
It backfires. He uses the example of doom
Doom
scrolling,
scrolling.
like spending hours on social media, consuming all that negative stuff.
Oh,
We
yeah.
think we're relaxing,
Yeah.
but it's actually draining.
It's exhausting.
So the quality of your downtime matters.
Okay.
And so he talks about calm activities.
Calm activities. What are those?
So calm stands for confidence, autonomy, liberation, and mellow mood.
Okay.
These are things that make you feel capable.
Okay.
They give you a break from your routine, and they foster relaxation.
So it could be anything from like hobbies,
Hobbies.
to being in nature,
Nature.
connecting with people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Finding those things that nourish you.
All right. So we've got overexertion, depletion.
Yeah.
What about misalignment?
So misalignment burnout, that's a bit more existential.
Okay.
It's about feeling a lack of purpose in your work.
You're just going through the motions.
You go into the mode.
You don't really care.
You don't care, and it can lead to dissatisfaction.
So how do we find that alignment?
Well, Abdaal talks about these different types of extrinsic motivation.
Okay.
It's not just intrinsic versus extrinsic.
Right.
It's a whole spectrum.
Okay.
From, avoiding punishment to aligning with your values.
And he's saying that we need to...
We need to find that alignment with our values.
Okay.
And so he has these exercises
Okay.
to help clarify those values and goals.
Like what?
So there's the eulogy method.
The eulogy method. That sounds a little morbid.
It does sound a little morbid, but
Okay.
it's imagining your own funeral
Okay.
and asking, what would I want people to say about me?
Wow. So you're thinking about your legacy.
You are.
Yeah. Okay.
Are your actions aligning with those values?
Okay.
He also has the Odyssey plan.
Odyssey plan?
It's about creating multiple 5-year plans,
Okay.
like different paths you could take,
So you're exploring options.
exploring options,
I like that.
and then to bridge the gap between those long-term visions and your actions,
Okay.
he has alignment quests,
Okay.
breaking down those big goals into smaller steps.
I see. So you're making it actionable.
You are.
And attainable.
It's about experimentation,
Okay.
adjusting your approach.
It's a journey.
It is a journey.
I really liked what he said about approaching productivity like a scientist.
Yeah.
Like always experimenting and adapting.
Finding what works best.
Yeah.
And That's something to remember.
This has been a great deep dive.
It has.
We've learned so much
Learned so much.
about feel-good productivity.
From the energizers to the blocks to
Yeah.
making it sustainable.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how Abdal makes it actionable.
He does.
Like, gives you specific things you can do.
Yeah, so if you're feeling stuck
Yeah.
or overwhelmed, check out his book.
Yeah, feel-good productivity.
Yeah.
It might change your whole perspective on things.
It might.
And remember, it's a journey.
It is.
There are going to be ups and downs.
There will be, but prioritize your well-being experiment and find those supportive connections.
It's all about finding that balance.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time.
3-2000.